You can find amazing affordable land that is available for sale today that nobody knows about. It's not on the market. The listing agents haven't listed it on the MLS. Other buyers aren't talking to these sellers, and yet these properties are incredible and they're available for sale right now if you know where to look. This video is going to tell you about how to find those properties, how to contact those sellers, make them an offer that makes sense for them and you, that you can afford to pay, how to close the deal for the property of your dreams. So at first you may wonder why it's even worth bothering looking for land for sale that's not on the market, because if you look on the market, there's a ton of land in every area that you can think of. So if those sellers are already motivated to list their land on the market, what's the point of even going through a process of trying to find people that might want to sell if you have so many sellers that you know are already available? So, I mean, really, if you look at it, the majority of listings on the market are overpriced. And those that are actually priced appropriately, there's a lot of competition. They tend not to sit on the market for very long because there's so few of them. And yet there's hundreds or even thousands of other similar properties that you can find if you know where to look. The next step is for you to really figure out, okay, what type of land do I really want to buy? Do I want to buy farmland? Do I want to buy a hunting property? Do I want to buy a rural wooded lot that I can turn into my own home site? You want to narrow down a criteria for that property that will include factors like location. It could be a city, it could be a county, or a small list of counties, or zip codes within a county. It could also be the size of the property that you want to buy. For example, I want to buy a property between 2 and 5 acres, or I want to buy hunting property 10 acres or higher. I want to buy a recreational property for camping. I want to buy a property for homesteading. And I want to be able to buy a property that has the right zoning so that I can have a mini farm, so that I can have a homestead, so that I can do these things that I want to do once I finally buy that land. Once you've established what your criteria are for buying property, the next step is you got to make a list of those properties so that you can reach out to those owners. The free way to do it is to go onto the county GIS system. Every county in the country has a mapping system where you can click around and just find properties that fit your criteria. And for every single property that you find that fits your target criteria, you want to add them to the list. And you may start to think, well, hey man, if I have to, build a list of a couple hundred properties and I have to one by one go through the tax cards and manually import all the data for all these property owners, that's going to take forever. And you're right, but the good news is that we now have tools available to us. Our team uses a free AI web scraping software called Magical. Magical, what it does is it's a plugin to your browser. It enables you to hover your cursor over top of a property tax card or any form that's available on any website. Any form on any website that's going to show up in the same template, in the same fashion, across a multitude of records. What you can do is you can create what's called a template on Magical that enables you to map all the different fields from that tax card into a spreadsheet. You configure it once, it's free, it takes 2 seconds, enables you to compile a list of the properties that you want to make an offer on. So you may think, well, that sounds really good, but it's still time consuming. And is there a way that I can be more efficient in compiling my list? And there is. We have a property data software that we subscribe to called DataTree. What DataTree enables you to do is to actually draw a polygon around the geographic area where you want to filter a list of properties. And then once you have the right location identified on DataTree, you just enter the same filters that you've already identified in your property selection criteria. So acreage, could be zoning, could be land use. You just enter those conditions into DataTree, and then it filters your list down even further and allows you to export a CSV file that includes all the public record information that's available on all those properties, including the mailing address information for the owner and the names of the owner. So now that you've gotten your list, it's a question of how do you contact those owners. One option that a lot of people do is door knocking. The best, most effective way to build rapport and build trust with someone is to talk to them face to face. But a lot of people, it's not their cup of tea. It feels a little bit awkward. They haven't really done door to door sales or outreach, and it might not be advisable. So what everybody does from this point is direct mail. Writing letters by hand will get a higher open rate, and that will engage your prospect landowners more effectively, but it also takes time. That would be a free, low-cost method. But the alternative is that you can use a direct mail company that will actually take your form letter, and they'll take the data for all the different landowners in your database, and they can send the same letter out to 100 or 1,000 or 3,000 or however many records you want to send. They'll send it out. If you export data from DataTree, it's about 10 cents a record, give or take. And if you send direct mail, depending on how the print settings are configured, it could be about 55, 60 cents per letter. So just be aware there would be a budget if you want to go that route. It may occur to you when you address your letters that it's going to be tedious because at the top of every letter, the owner's name is going to be different. And also the address information is going to be different, and the property acreage, etc. There's going to be differences for every letter you send. What you do there is what's called a mail merge. A mail merge enables you to identify the variable information fields. They're called merge fields. Instead of Jane Smith, it'll say owner first name, owner last name. And you'll put those fields that you get from the public records into a form letter that those variables are able to be entered one-off by the mail company, and they'll do all the work of creating unique individual letters for each of the owners that you're targeting. So you got to plan to send volume of letters, because it's not like you're going to send 2 letters out and then both people will have great properties at great prices that they're dying to sell to you. No, people get inundated with letters, and you have to plan on sending real volume. So if you're doing it by hand and you have handwritten envelopes, you may plan on sending 300, 400, 500, maybe a little more to get the deal done. So it's a little bit of a process. If you send a letter via one of the mail houses I described, ITI direct mail is one, I would plan on sending several thousand. You may even send it in a couple batches. You may have a couple different versions of your letter. And I would suggest that you do. You want to hit people in sequence. So that's where you probably would have to send something like, I'd say maybe 4,000 or 5,000 letters, maybe less. But that's kind of where, if you're a retail buyer and you're willing to pay a price that's close to market value, and you're not an investor that has to get a steep discount, that really opens a lot of things up for you and enables you to offset your mail cost with the price reduction that you're going to get from the seller. Any direct mail marketer for any business or industry knows that when you send direct mail in volume, you're going to get hate mail and hate calls in response. Don't overreact to it, because it'll probably happen at least on one of the calls you get. So if you send 5,000 letters out, I mean, you understand a demographic sample of American citizens. I mean, you're going to get all types of different people on the other end of those letters. So don't take it too personally, and if you have people that don't want to be contacted, just take them off the list, and if you send that list again, just make sure that they're not on it. What it comes down to is that a lot of these sellers that are skeptical at first are going to be real sellers. So you just have to understand that there's a handful of objections that they're going to have, and you just want to be ready for what those objections are. How'd you get my information? Well, I got it from public record. Actually, the county makes that information available, so I was able to contact you that way. How do I know this is real? Is this a scam? It's like, hey, I live local, or I'm moving to the area. The reason that I want to buy this property is XYZ123. They just want to hear that there's a real person. Then it's like, well, what do you want to do with the property? And you kind of tell them what your interest is and kind of tell a story around it. Then it's like, okay, well, how do I know I'm going to get paid? The answer is we're going to close through title, or we're going to close through a real estate attorney. They're going to make sure that both of our sides of the agreement are taken care of. You're going to get a lot of great responses from people that you're going to really build a connection with right away, and that you're going to want to do business with. And it's kind of cool what happens when you send the right letter out, but it's just about getting that letter in a form that is going to get a response. And so the structure that I'd recommend for your letter has 3 basic phases to it, and I would call it hook, story, offer. Hook is like first line, why you're writing the letter, why they should care, and what your interest is in the property. Second is story. So with story, what you want to do is establish who you are, and you want to establish a narrative that connects with that seller, that lets them know that you're real, and that it's not a waste of their time to talk to you. It's like, hey, we've been relocated from out of state. Our job moved us to this area, but we want to build our own home in the country. And we found your property on the county database, and we looked on Google Street View and fell in love with it. I know you're probably not interested in selling, but I figured it was worth a try. At the bottom, here's a picture of me with my wife, me with my husband or my dog or my family, or at my desk of my IT job. It's like, hey, I'm at work. This is me at work. It's boring today. That originality and authenticity of who you are is what's going to cut through the noise. So I'd really encourage you to put a photo of yourself and your signature at the bottom. And then lastly, your offer is, hey, if you consider an offer on your land, I'd love to connect with you. And just contact me by phone here or by email here. And so you want to give them clean, easy ways to get a hold of you. When it comes down to making your offer, you may be intimidated because you're used to seeing these 15-page agreements that are the form purchase agreements that the real estate agents use. And they'll tell you that you have to use these like long, fancy documents that a lot of people don't even read, but you really don't. A one-page agreement is fine. I mean, a one-page agreement will pay cash this amount and we'll close on this date. That's fine. That's all you need. And we use a one-page agreement for a lot of transactions in our business. And the agreement that we use, it's more complex than what you would even need, honestly. It's just, here are the parties, here are the terms, here's the number on the purchase price, here's when we plan to close. What you may find is that a seller is interested in selling, but they're a little bit sensitive on price and they need a price that's a little bit higher than what you're able to pay, at least up front. So that's where owner finance can be really incredible, because you can tell them, hey, I can't do the $60,000 upfront in cash. What I could do is I could pay you $30,000 in cash, and I could put the $30,000 remaining balance on a 5-year note that amortizes across 5 years with monthly payments of X with 7% interest. And then in 5 years, you're going to get paid off completely and you'll get monthly payments every month while you're waiting. And so you may be intimidated because you don't know how to pitch owner finance, or you don't know about how that stuff works, or the paperwork's super complicated, or so you think. But the answer to all those concerns is the same as something we mentioned earlier, which is that the title company or real estate attorney, they do this stuff all the time. This is just another day in the office for them, and they're going to make sure that both sides of the agreement understand exactly how the terms work and that both sides are protected in their interest. And so they're going to do all the paperwork for you. All that you have to do with the seller is say, hey, we're going to bring this to title anyway, but in the meantime, it's just you and I that have to work together to agree on what the terms are. And then we're going to let the attorneys do all the paperwork. And if you've done everything right in this video and you've got a property under contract, you connected with the owner, you really like their property, they like you have an agreement that makes sense, that you can afford to pay, that's exciting, but that excitement gives way to a little bit of anxiety because you may not know exactly what the due diligence steps are to get that property closed without making any huge costly mistakes before the transaction's recorded. And so for that reason, I'm going to put a video here in the corner of the page that actually talks about the 10 biggest areas of mistakes that land buyers make when buying property. And so you can watch that video in its entirety and you're going to pick up on all types of stuff that's going to help you be successful getting that property closed with confidence and managing all the risk along the way.